So we shall go on to our next speaker, Dr. Paras Mehta, who heads the Sameep Eye Hospital and Cornea Center at Vadodara, and with great contributions to cornea work. And let's look forward to a very interesting 8 minutes now. On to you. You need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Chitra and team ARC. Good evening, everyone. My talk today is neurotrophic keratitis. Since it was an ARC PG update series, I've just divided into few parts, like the basics with basics, followed by classification and management strategies. Let's see how much I can cover in these next 8 minutes. I would like to begin this talk with an interesting clinical case. Like usually we see such cases like a 70-year-old male who underwent a cataract surgery a few months back, and he was referred to us with the complaints of recurrent episodes of watering from the same eye post-surgery. He gave a history of corneal scar in the right eye since childhood, and he was asymptomatic prior to surgery. These are the cases who are, if not attended in time, can end up into many a times persistent corneal epithelial defect and probably, corneal perforation and loss of an eye. So for the ease of communication, I would henceforth call neurotrophic keratitis as NK. So NK poses a clinical challenge for both early diagnosis and management. The definition is, it is a rare degenerative corneal disease caused by impairment of trigeminal innervation, which in turn leads to corneal epithelial breakdown, impairment of healing, and development of corneal ulceration and melting and perforation. The hallmark is obviously decrease or absence of corneal sensation. It is often overlooked and diagnosed too late in the course of the disease. That's why it is very important to suspect this particular entity. It was initially described as neuroparalytic keratitis. It is now demonstrated that trigeminal nerve provides corneal sensation and also supplies trophic factors to the cornea, playing a key role in maintaining the anatomical integrity and function of the ocular surface. The ocular surface epithelium, tear gland, and sensory and autonomic nerve fibers exert a mutual influence of their structures and functions by the release of cytokines, neuropeptides, and neuromediators. So the impairment of corneal trigeminal innervation causes morphological and metabolic epithelial disturbances, which can lead to development of recurrent and persistent epithelial defect. Cornea, as we understand in the human body, cornea is among the most sensitive and densely innervated tissue. And corneal epithelial cells act in a mutually supportive relation with the corneal nerve, which can help in providing protective functions like blinking and tearing, and also provides trophic support like neuropeptides as substance P promote epithelial cell proliferation, migration, and adhesion. So if you look at the pathophysiology of NK, it is characterized by altered corneal sensations, loss or imbalance of trophic factors, leading to probably secondary alterations of the lacrimal functional unit. The process is initiated by altered corneal sensations. The abnormal sensory innervation can occur anywhere along the neural pathway, starting from trigeminal nucleus to trigeminal ganglion and to the postganglionic fibers innervating the ocular surface. The altered corneal sensations leads to, there will be subsequent impairment in the trigeminal reflexes, and trophic factor supply lead to changes in the lacrimal functional unit and manifestations of NK. Several nerve-dependent functions like protective blink reflex, lacrimal tear secretion, epithelial cell metabolism, and trophic factor release are impaired in NK, leading to desiccation and ultimately an epithelial breakdown. Neurotrophic factors normally support the growth and survival and differentiation of both the developing and mature neurons. They are crucial to epithelial nerve interactions that help maintaining the corneal homeostasis through epithelial cell proliferation, migration, adhesion, and differentiation. Sensory nerves also influence the lacrimal glands' release of growth factors and nutrients of the ocular surface. An impairment of trigeminal innervation decreases the trophic factor supply, leading to corneal epithelial alterations, as you can see here, and impairment of corneal healing eventually. The secondary alterations also occurs to the lacrimal functional unit, which can lead to punctal epithelial erosions, irregular or hazy corneal epithelium, epithelial defects, subepithelial haze, stromal scarring, and ulceration and perforation. We look at the prevalence and incidence. This particular disease is diagnosed as rare and orphan disease. It affects less than equal to 5 individuals in 10,000, and it is really difficult to determine the prevalence. It is extrapolated from the other diseases, like almost 6% of the patients of herpes simplex keratitis develop NK. That number doubles in herpes zoster keratitis, and approximately 2% or 2.8% develop NK in post-surgical nerve damage. So recent retrospective epidemiologic studies suggest higher prevalence of about 11 individuals in 10,000. Ocular and systemic conditions associated with damage at any level of the fifth cranial nerve, from the trigeminal nucleus to the corneal nerve endings, may cause the development of NK, as you can see here in this schematic diagram. The most common causes of impairment of corneal sensations are mainly viral keratitis, that is herpetic, both herpes simplex and herpes zoster. The other ocular causes could be chemical burns, physical injuries, certain corneal dystrophies, chronic use of topical medications like anti-glaucoma medications, NSAIDs, and sometimes topical anesthetic abuse, and anterior segment surgery involving nerve transactions. Other systemic conditions like which can develop corneal anesthesia, including diabetes, multiple sclerosis, leprosy, and many of the congenital syndromes. And also neurological conditions like intracranial space occupying lesions and or neurosurgical procedures that damage the trigeminal ophthalmic branch, like surgery for trigeminal neuralgia or acoustic neuroma. So diagnosis usually is, the clinical history is a key element in reaching to the diagnosis, followed by clinical examination. The clinical examination, you can just follow this schematic diagram that once you have gone into a detailed history, like presence of previous scar, past history of any blisters around the eye, many other, the history of surgery, history of other surgery in the body, like sometimes trigeminal neuralgia, followed by clinical examinations like, presence of persistent epithelial defect or ulcers. We'll come to the clinical staging of this disease later. Corneal conjunctival vital staining, which will be fluorescent staining, and Dissemin green can be used to know the area of defect and devitalized areas. Lacrimal function tests like Schirmer's and TBUT could be affected into that. And usually a tear osmolarity is higher in these cases. And obviously a decreased corneal sensitivity. So you can follow this chart. If you just go through ocular symptoms, history, and clinical examination and tests, you suspect NK, or then go ahead with tests to test corneal sensitivity. If it is normal, maybe probably the chances of NK are unlikely. If it is reduced, maybe NK is likely, and further test and grading would lead to the diagnosis. These are the risk factors which I've already talked about.
1 minute remaining.
Go into the detail. The corneal sensations can be assessed with the help of cotton tip, tissue paper, or dental floss, or you can use sophisticated gadgets like esthesiometer, Poche-Bonnet, and you can get a quantitative measurement of the corneal sensations. Even one can use in vivo confocal microscopy to find out the involvement of the nerve density. The clinical presentations could be characterized by corneal epithelial changes ranging from superficial punctate keratopathy to recurrent and persistent epithelial defects and ulcers, which may progress to stromal melting and corneal perforation. We'll just go into the stages. An NK classification is based on the severity of the disease process. McKee has divided into 3 stages. Stage 1 would have punctate keratopathy, corneal edema, corneal epithelial hyperplasia, and irregularity. Sometimes they may have stromal scarring and corneal neovascularization. If there are chronic changes, they would be associated with staining of the inferior palpebral conjunctiva, decreased TBUT. Stage 2 would have epithelial defect, typically oval in the central or paracentral region, surrounded by a rim of loose epithelium, as you can see here. The edges may be rolled out, which would be very classical to clinch the diagnosis. There may be stromal swelling with folds in the Descemet's membrane, or anterior chamber inflammatory reactions in the terms of hypopyon also may be present. Stage 3 would definitely present with corneal ulcer, where there would be involvement of the stroma. There would be stromal lysis and melt, and ultimately it can lead to perforation. Rarely an inflammatory reaction in the anterior chamber may be present, and it may be associated with sterile hypopyon, or it may occur without significant ocular. These all stages would occur without significant ocular symptoms. That's very, very important to understand. The recent development of more effective treatment options necessitates a more highly defined staging system, which better reflects the evolution of disease and alerts the clinician to either earlier stages of NK. So a neurotrophic keratitis study group divided them into 7 stages. to allow earlier diagnosis, accurately monitor the progression and evolution of the recurrence, and assess and evaluate response to the treatment. They divided them into stage 0, stage 1, 2, 3. Stage 0 would have altered sensations only. 1 would have epitheliopathy, 2 would have epitheliopathy with stromal haze, 3 would have persistent or recurrent epithelial defects, while stage 4 would have persistent or recurrent epithelial defect with underlying stromal scarring. 5 would have the same as 4 with corneal ulceration, and stage 6 would have corneal perforation. The prognosis depends on various factors: the cause or impairment of corneal sensitivity, duration of condition, the degree of corneal hypoesthesia, and presence of concomitant disease of the ocular surface, whether there is associated limbal stem cell deficiency, dry eye, or any other associated condition. Obviously, the more severe the corneal sensory impairment, the greater the likelihood of disease progression. The incidence of neurotrophic keratopathy increases with age. The management principles would be: the aim is to restore corneal integrity and prevent progression. It should be done in conjunction with underlying predisposing conditions. A step-ladder approach based on severity and combination of treatment is more effective. These are the topical systemic treatments for NK, preservative-free artificial tears. These are all palliative therapy. These are office-based interventions for NK, like application of AMG, therapeutic bandage, contact lens, non-surgical eyelid closure with Botox, tarsorrhaphy, punctal plugs, and ciliary lenses. A newer drug which is available now for NK management is Cenigermin, which is a recombinant human nerve growth factor, which is first approved for the treatment of NK. It is available not to us, but in United States, and it is indicated for all the stages of NK in United States, while in European Union, it is used for only stage 2 and 3. It is administered 6 times per day for 8 weeks, and the results are wonderful. The surgical treatment could be tarsorrhaphy, amniotic membrane application, which could be single layer or multi-layered, which could be glued or sutured, punctal cautery, keratoplasty, or tissue adhesive for perforation and repair. The newer advances in the field of surgical treatment could be direct neurotization of the cornea. This corneal neurotization is a novel and promising surgical procedure for NK. It can be performed through 2 different techniques based on the transposition of the supraorbital or supratrochlear nerves, which is known as direct neurotization, or on the sural nerve graft, which is an indirect neurotization. But it requires multi-speciality team efforts, and probably it is still limited to an institutional base.
To conclude.
Yeah, I would just. So these are the, management options for stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. And to summarize, NK is a highly underdiagnosed condition and poses a challenge for the clinician. A detailed history with strong clinical suspicion and examination helps identifying the condition earlier. Optimal medical management coupled with timely surgical interventions may yield better results. NK should be always suspected in cases of significant discrepancy between ocular signs and symptoms, because these patients would not have much symptoms, but they would have marked ocular signs. Thank you for the time. And thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Paras, for covering a whole lot of it and a lot of information. I would want to ask Dr. Merle on this. What would be the challenges we face when you're treating an infective ulcer in these kind of patients, Dr. Merle? Could you just briefly tell us?
Yeah, so I think when you have an infection in the setting of anesthetic cornea, the healing time is definitely more prolonged. And then you also have the added fact that you're dealing with drugs which are toxic to the cornea per se, and they would prevent healing. So you have, fortified antibiotics that may be going on. They're going on very frequently every hour. While the dictum for management of a case of neurotrophic keratitis would be to kind of reduce all these epitheliotoxic medications. In fact, stop them altogether and use preservative-free. But here you're torn between, management of the infectious component as well as management of the anesthetic component. And you have to try and do both. So you can't avoid treating the infection. So you have to use those medications. But I think what is important would be to couple that with a tarsorrhaphy, which would definitely help. And in addition, sometimes you may use an amniotic membrane, but ideally not when you have a pre-existing kind of infection. You'd like that to get controlled first before you actually proceed. If you have a fungal infection, I think it's a little more challenging. But then I guess the options would be the same.
But if you're doing a PK for these patients and you're combining it with tarsorrhaphy, how long would you have to wait for the process to settle down that you can release the tarsorrhaphy, or would you have to leave those patients like that?
No, I think you have to leave the tarsorrhaphy. you have to leave the task to me.
PK for anesthetic corneas can be really a disaster. I mean, when you try to do PK for anesthetic corneas and herpes zoster, etc., I mean, it's like it's a different ball game completely. So it should be avoided for as long as possible. Try to glue it or use other procedures. But when you have to do a corneal transplantation in these anesthetic corneas, it can be really, prognosis is very bad.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for the discussion and questions. Dr. Praveen, you have to ask anything before we go to the next speaker?
I just wanted to follow up on the point about the clues for neurotrophy, because when you see a patient, we don't have some really good tests to diagnose neurotrophy. So what would be your clues, Dr. Paras Mehta, when you see a patient that you think that, oh, this patient might have a neurotrophic cornea, other than just testing corneal sensation, because we don't do that routinely, right?
Yes, Dr. Praveen. Whenever we see these patients and if the patient is asymptomatic, the most important part is obviously history. Many a times patients would not feel that they need to furnish certain history. Like, for example, for trigeminal neuralgia, if they have undergone some procedure, they may not think that it is useful for, further management of eye disease. So the most important part is history followed by clinical examination. They're very classical presentations, and we have to also look at the compounding factors. Like if there are any associated clinical conditions, we should be able to justify and understand whether it is primarily due to the secondary disease process or it is because of the impairment of the corneal sensitivity. And to come back to the previous question, I would also like to continue tarsorrhaphy, sometimes lifelong, as long as the sensitivity is not restored in those corneal cases, because with PK, many a times we have to continue tarsorrhaphy lifelong. It may be partial.
No, I was as alluding to things like, say, somebody with a poor blink rate or somebody who doesn't feel the need to actually close their eyes very frequently. It seems that could be a clue. Like SPKs in the interpalpebral area, hypertrophic epithelium, stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of.
Okay, I thought I just covered in those classification, the 3 grades of McKee. So yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Cool.
Also, if you have a large defect with a very quiet eye and, typically in the lower 1/3, and like Praveen said, the blink reflex being absent or a dry surface, this would probably make you suspect a neurotrophy. And especially in children. In fact, I've had the opportunity to see, I think 2 or 3 children. They just came with, an ulcer, infiltrate, a quiet eye, no congestion. And it was just on suspicion that we did MRI, and we found that, the caudal nucleus was absent, the 3rd, 4th nucleus was absent, the 5th was absent. So one needs to be very, very alert, especially in children. And there are some who have these small fiber neuropathies. If you look at them carefully, you'll see that the phalanx is tapering. If a child sucks his thumb, you'll see it has a very peculiar appearance. These are very, very rare cases, but there again, you look, like they hurt themselves. So you'll typically get bilateral ulcers in the lower part of the corneas. You look at their fingers and thumbs, they'll have deformities because of the anesthesia. So, you also got to look at the patient in toto to give you clues on the neurotrophic element.
Thank you.